Welcome to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
AAA, our minds are so powerful. They play so many tricks on us. You know the saying, something like the world would be so much better without people. We are so silly as people, right? The way we sabotage ourselves. We are in a relationship that's bad, but we're scared of the pain it would take to get out of that relationship. So we stay in a bad relationship. Or we are feeling bad, so we sit on the couch and eat donuts and watch TV for 3 weeks, and we feel so much worse after it. Or people drink because they're feeling bad, and then they cause more problems, spend more money, get DUIs, do foolish things, and sabotage themselves.
Well, the egregious thing is when people do that to their retirements and don't even know it. I think we should talk about that on today's show. Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic, sabotaging your retirement. Retirement sabotage.
Yeah, Dad, this is a big thing. We see it all the time, right? Where people don't have a strategy for retirement, and they make a decision by indecision, and unknowingly, they're good people. Their advisors are good people.
Sure.
Just like you're sad and you're eating donuts instead of going working out, but it compounds the wrong way.
Right.
And it might not be a big deal if you do it once or twice, but if you get into a pattern of that, the way that our minds are wired, we get in a pattern and it becomes a program, and we just run the program. It's not even the decision anymore. It's just part of our program, a program that we're running, right? And so we have to watch out for these things, because it's really easy. Sometimes you need a friend to smack you in the face and say, hey, you're just running a program. You're not being you. You're not thinking. It's just a program you're running, right?
Exactly.
And we thank God for friends that will do that and help us wake up out of these things. But what about in retirements? People have been doing the same thing for 20, 30, 40 years as far as investing, but things change when you get close to or you are in retirement, right?
Exactly. And you know, that's one of the things that's one of the first things that I think how and why people sabotage their retirements is because they make a decision by indecision, right? Because they have a plan for saving for retirement by putting in their 401k every paycheck and that kind of thing. They dollar cost average into the stock market, and that's not a bad methodology. But the problem comes into play. They don't really have a strategy long term. That's a strategy while they're working. And then when they stop working, when they stop putting their 401k plan, that's where the problem comes in, because now they've just made a decision by indecision. Their investments are not working in the way they were working because they stopped a piece of that. So their strategy has kind of fallen apart, and they don't even know it.
And a lot of times we see advisors don't do it either. They stay in the same investments from someone who's gone from working phase of life to either close to or in retirement phase of life, and they stay in the same investments. And how does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. It's sabotage.
Right.
It's not purposefully, but it's sabotage.
No.
And we've seen it cost people their retirements, right?
Right.
And so you and I put together, we see all kinds of stuff. We can't go on all the ways people sabotage them. And this is more things to watch out for, more so than getting into the science behind how humans sabotage themselves.
Right.
But we put together, out of all the things we've seen, the wall of shame, as I call it, right? All the crazy things that we've seen in people's portfolios or seen people do, we've pulled out a few that we'd like to go over today.
Right, exactly. And that is, one of the big ideas behind retirement sabotage is how people either deliberately or unintentionally have sabotage themselves or hurt their retirement situations. Now, usually it's not deliberately, right? Usually it's unintentional. That's the whole point of sabotage in this case. If you're fighting a war and you're going to sabotage the enemy, you're doing that deliberately, but you're not your own, unfortunately, when you do it unintentionally, you're your own worst enemy. And how people do that is not for number one thing is the strategy, not having the right strategy or a
strategy at all. Most people don't have a retirement strategy. They might have a plan or a plan or right.
Right. Exactly. And then, that's a good point. They might have a retirement plan, right? Which, along those lines, that's one of the whole ideas is that, people can work with the wrong planner, the wrong advisor. Right. And which reminds me, we've got a paper on that. It's called 10 Warning Signs of Working with the Wrong Financial Advisor. We'd love to put that in your hand if it's so that you guys can read about this and recognize the warning signs so that you don't deliberately or undeliberately or unintentionally sabotage your retirement plan. You can have that for free by calling us at 800-725-7616. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is retirement sabotage. Daniel, people don't have a plan, right? And well, here's the problem. Plans are different than strategies too.
Yes.
And a plan is
different.
Right. Plans are typically, fiction based upon fact or fact based upon fiction, depending where you're starting. It's the concept of, figures don't lie, but liars figure. Right. It's the exact same thing. But a strategy is not that.
The Mike Tyson quote, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Right, exactly. Right. But a strategy is a methodology that works no matter what. Yes, things always need to be changed because three things in life are certain: death, taxes, and change. But the question is, what do you do about that change and what's necessary with that? And when we're talking about change, that's a big thing, right? Because when people are working, there's one methodology of doing things, but when people get ready to retire, it needs to be a different methodology. Just like, when you were a kid, you went to a pediatrician. And then when you've grown up, now that you're an adult, you're going to a regular general practitioner doctor. Things change. Your doctors change. Your advisors change. You go from a plan to a strategy. All kinds of things need to be changing.
Yeah, I think, and that if you said a plan would be something like, I have a plan. I'm going to go see the doctor. I'm going to see the doctor every year. There's a plan. Mm-hmm. A strategy would be a health strategy. I want to do these things. I want to live this kind of lifestyle. I want to eat these kinds of foods. And this way, I'm ensuring that my health, as much as possible, that my health will be good. It's not just I have a plan to see the doctor. You have a strategy where you are eating a certain way and you have it mapped out because you know what the end result is going to be. You're not saying if I go see the doctor, statistics say that I will have an extended life period or I'll be okay, because that's not going to catch anything.
That's a plan. That's a good example of a plan.
That's a plan. The strategy is saying I want this kind of physique or I want this kind of health, so I'm going to eat these types of foods this much a week.
Yeah. Right.
And then I'm going to exercise this much. And you're still going to go see the doctor, but now you're checking up on something, not just saying, whatever happened. Okay, we'll see you in a year, and whatever happens again, right? That's hopefully helping people understand kind of the difference between a plan and a strategy.
Right. And the first thing that we're talking about today is people, that's the number one way that people sabotage their retirements. They looking at plans rather than strategy, or maybe they got no idea at all. They're just putting money away, or maybe they're not even putting money away. And the key, I think, with what you're saying is when you're talking about that strategy for your health, it's a holistic approach. That's very important. A holistic strategy, one that's going to take into all things. But what people do is they typically look at investing, the investment aspect. They look at what they're investing in. They don't look at the big picture, and that's what how they sabotage their retirement by not looking at the big picture, and that's what we're talking about today, right? So the second thing.
Well, can we go on strategy a little before we switch with the strategy, right? For retirement, specifically for retirement, the strategy you need to envision what your retirement, what you want it to look like, because when we talk about the plan, your plan is to go see the doctor, but that doesn't take care of anything. And then if there's a problem, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
With the strategy, you're looking at what you want it to do. And now you were telling me today, it frustrates you so much when people say, well, I hope we make it, or I hope that assets keep going up, or I hope the market doesn't come down. That is, you're planning that's going to happen, but that's not a strategy. The strategy can morph and adapt and get you there. But to build the strategy, you need to see the end goal first.
Right.
What does retirement look like?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do in retirement?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Build that vision, work on that, visualize it, build what does retirement look like?
What does
it
it feel
sitting
like?
at home? Is it donating to your favorite organizations? Is it flying first class? Is it taking your family on a trip? Is it donating to your favorite causes and taking your family on a trip? Is it spending a year in another country learning another language? Is it learning how to cook in Italy, right? What is it? What do you want it to be? That's where it starts. And then you can start building a strategy to fit that. And I just want to tap on that. That's a little bit different than the plan. My plan is to have X amount of dollars in retirement. That's not nearly as helpful or as achievable as seeing what you want retirement to look like, because then you can start building a strategy to get you there, compared to my plan is to have $5 million. That may work, that may not work. There's so many variables in there. That's much harder to get to than seeing your retirement and then strategizing in a way to achieve that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you've been just joining us, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is retirement sabotage. We'd love to be able to put a book in your hand that will help you to keep from sabotaging your retirement. And this is by our friend Mike Easom, The Common Sense Income Strategies, which will be able to give you an easy read book, be able to give you some insights as to how to be able to put together a strategy that's going to work for you, that's going to make you to be able to have the income that you need now and for the rest of your life. Love to put this in your hand for free by calling 800-725-7616 for your free copy. The next 5 callers at 800-725-7616. We'll be right back after this.
This is Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
Boy, I think it's insane how history repeats itself and how we do the same thing over and over. There's this book, Richest Man in Babylon. It's written from ancient times, but it was written in 1926, and it's amazing how the principles then, you would say, well, now we have technology, are the exact same. Everything's the same. We think it's different, but there's nothing new under the sun. And there's a story where someone wants to invest and they want to do a good job. They want to make wise decisions. They want to earn money. They realize that to get wealthy, you need to make the right investment decisions. You need to have investments.
Right. You need to have them.
So they take their money and they give it to the blacksmith who's going overseas to find good investments.
Yeah.
And they ask the blacksmith to find them diamonds, because diamonds are a great investment, right?
Right.
Well, what does the blacksmith know about diamonds? So the blacksmith goes and they buy diamonds and they end up being fake or not what they thought they were. And
Awesome.
now the person ends up not having their seed fund.
Right.
They don't have their capital anymore, and they have a worthless investment. I'm Daniel Agemy.
And I'm Andrew Agemy. And you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. So we're here to educate you. And today's topic is retirement sabotage. Are you retiring? Are you sabotaging your own retirement? Well, we've talked about so far in the first segment of our show the aspect of not having a strategy, lack of, people have plans or not a plan, and lack of strategy and that kind of thing. But now, we're going to talk about investment decisions, and especially that of having the wrong advisor, right? Because how many bad advisors does it take to ruin somebody's retirement? The answer is one. That's all it takes. Now, whether that's yourself because you're doing it yourself or you're hiring somebody to do it, it only takes one. And so, people make poor decisions. Daniel, you were talking about just a moment ago before we, came into the segment about how people are paying people to handle their money for them, and sometimes they, you don't even know what you're paying. I've seen people paying 2% a year on their assets, which, when they're losing money, it's terrible.
Well, most people don't know what they pay, and that's a problem, because people think that the markets have done these amazing, ridiculous numbers, right?
Right.
And they don't calculate fees into that. And how could you calculate your fees into that if you don't know what you're paying, right?
Right.
And so that's like you had mentioned, Vanguard came up with the idea of trying to just buy a basket of stocks and not really have any fees. So if you're doing that and that's your strategy, hey, you've got a strategy. You're better than most people.
Mm-hmm.
We talked earlier about when life changes, the strategy might need to change, because as you are buying into that fund, you're saving money. It works really good. But if you have to start drawing it out, it doesn't, right?
Right.
So part of poor investment decisions would be not knowing, having the wrong advisor, not knowing what you're paying in fees, or having fees on top of fees on top of fees.
Buying the wrong investments. Yeah, there's a lot of different aspects when it comes to this.
Yeah. And some of the ways you can know if you're making those poor decisions is ask yourself, would I pay myself to manage my money? Or would I pay this advisor? Like, step back objectively, like you weren't paying them. And would I pay this person actual money? Would I write them a check for whatever you're paying them, right? So like you could add it up. You could see the internal mutual fund fees. You could see the internal ETF fees. You could see what they're charging. You could see other expenses, and you could see how much that is and say, would I pay that? Would I write a check for that? Like after I know how this has done for this amount of time, right?
Right.
So making these decisions on purpose, consciously thinking about, would you do it again? Because if you wouldn't do it again, why are you doing it? That's the same thing as we talked at the very, very beginning of the show, where people are sabotaging themselves. They don't want to take the pain of leaving this person.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll continue taking the pain of being with this person because they don't want that more pain for a shorter period of time.
Right. Or they don't know what to do. Right.
Or you don't know what to do.
Because they don't know what they don't know. And that becomes problematic. Well, and then, there's the aspect of, anyway, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is retirement sabotage. One of the ways that we recognize that people sabotage their retirement is having the wrong advisor. We'd like to put a paper in your hand that will help you recognize and see the warning signs if you have the wrong advisor. Especially when you're talking about retirement. So if you'd like that paper, just ask for it by name, The Wrong Advisor, and call us at 800-725-7616 for your free copy and no obligation. You listen to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. Today's topic is retirement sabotage. So we've talked about how people sabotage their retirements by not having the proper strategy in place. And then they make poor investment decisions. And when I think about that, I think about the people that say, oh, people come in and say, I just am not good when it comes to investing. I always sell when I buy something. That's when you should be selling it, Andrew, because I know it's going to start going down after I buy it. And then when I sell something, that's when you should be buying it, Andrew, because that's when I know it's going to be going up after it just happens that way every time, right? So there's a lot involved in being able to invest and make money. You can make money in almost every kind of market. The question is, how do you make money, and how do you do that? And so if you're paying somebody to do that for you, hopefully they know how to do that instead of just putting you in a bunch of mutual funds, because as how hard it is to put you in mutual funds, it's as hard as checking a box. Not hard at all. But
and that goes back to the strategy, because the strategy can help you organize the decisions in a way that makes sense for your strategy. Because it depends if you're in the accumulation stage of life, depends if you're in the distribution stage of life, depends if you have a lot of money, if you have a little bit of money. These all change that thing, right? For a lot of people we work with, a good investment decision is number one thing: protect your principal. They already earned a lot of money, right? They don't need to earn a lot more money. Some people might want to do that. That's fine. But most people, they just want to protect what they have, grow it organically, but protect what they have so they won't have to earn a lot of money again. Because if you, the other one we talk about, right, is people didn't save enough money for retirement. And they say, well, I guess we need to be more aggressive because I don't have enough money. And that doesn't work.
Right.
Okay. If you're okay going to zero, then do it. But if your strategy is to build a lot of money, you don't just say, I want to be aggressive. That's a poor decision and a poor strategy.
Right. And people think in terms of building their nest egg, not in what their nest egg will do for them. Not right. And so, like, we like to talk about chickens and the eggs. If you buy chickens, you'll always be able to eat in retirement by eating the eggs. But if you buy roosters, and you're not going to have any eggs, you're going to have to kill roosters to eat. So this is all part of understanding how to invest properly. And one of the aspects of poor investments is emotions come into play. And that's where we go back to the original one, a strategy. If you got a good strategy, a good strategy will manage the emotions, because
protects you from yourself.
Right. It protects you from yourself. You just keep with the strategy. And that is one of the big things, so these investment decisions and strategies go hand in hand, but, nevertheless, they are different. And then there's the performance versus purpose strategies. And people typically are working on performance all their lives until they get to retirement. Well, that's what the biggest mistake retirees make, is not switching from performance to purpose at the proper time. And that's what creates them being able to run out of money, because they don't have it. They don't have the strategy right. They don't have the things right. And so you got to make sure that
I think we could end the show there. I think we're all set. There you go.
All right. Well, it's time for us to take a break anyway, so we'll do that. And before we go to break, you're listening to Financial Strategies, Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. We want to help you understand and to make educated decisions so that you can make a decision on purpose rather than by default. Today, we have a book called Common Sense Income Strategies by our friend Mike Eason that will be able to give you some perspective on how to retire, how to invest for retirement, how to set up a strategy that will be useful to you for now and the rest of your life. We'll give you this book for free by calling 800-725-7616. Next 5 callers, no obligation, for free, 800-725-7616. Call now.
This is Financial Strategy with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
Triple A, part of why people are sabotaged in their retirement is not thinking ahead. Yeah, I was talking to a client the other day, and we're going through the portfolio. Most of the money is in her name, right? And they're saying how they want to make sure that they're both okay if something happens to her. And if she has to go into some kind of facility or something like that, we've seen over and over where people's assets are drained down or they never thought of it, and they have to make all these decisions right away with it's hard to make a decision when it's never crossed your mind. Usually people end up making bad decisions, so they're talking to an elder attorney and they're working out. They hope everyone hopes they never need this strategy,
Right.
but they're planning ahead, so if it happened,
Mhm.
they'd be okay. Their healthcare needs, their assets can be protected in this crazy event that seems like it's happening more and more to people. Here's a good example of someone that's protecting themselves from sabotage in retirement. I'm Daniel Agemy.
And I'm Andrew Agemy. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. Today's topic is retirement sabotage. Daniel, that's a good example of a good example. I'm glad to hear that we've talked about first how people sabotage their retirements is by not having a strategy that will work for them overall. And here we have people that have a strategy that's going to work for one of those this would be the third way in our topics today of how people sabotage their retirements is not taking care of health care costs. Now, health care costs for what we're talking about today could range anything from health insurance to long-term care health costs. Now, we're not talking about long-term care insurance. We're talking about long-term care health costs. Now, you might have long-term care insurance to take care of that, but there's a cost that comes along with it. Now, I've never seen anybody that says, okay, I want to spend down my money. I don't see them have on the bucket list. I want to spend down my money and then, go into convalescent home and die in the convalescent home. No, people want to stay home as long as possible. And so it's going to take money. It's going to take income to be able to do that. And sometimes people withdraw their money the wrong way from their portfolios, and they cannibalize their assets, so they won't have the money. So it's important to be able to take this in consideration, right? So what I've seen with people is how I have seen people who have enough money to retire, but they don't have the money to pay health insurance. So they can't retire before 65 because they don't have the money to do that. So when 65 comes, they can have Medicare. But then I've seen people who have, their companies give them health care benefits, but they don't have the money that they need to retire on. So you have to look at those aspects for health insurance. And then comes into play the aspect of what's called IRMA, which is the aspect that where depending how much income you have, you can be paying more for your Medicare rates, sometimes as much as $400 to $500 a month each, as opposed to the $170 a month base, because people don't think about healthcare costs and what that's going to be. And then you got the need for the long-term care, how to keep you in the home. So there's a lot of different angles by which this healthcare, how people sabotage themselves with insufficient healthcare planning and strategies.
Yeah, and there's multiple. This we could do a whole show on this topic because there's so many things when it comes to the healthcare and the long-term care. And you mentioned it a little bit, if you have to live in this facility or if you have enough money where you can have someone come to your home. But these costs have become astronomical. And so we're not going to go into how to protect your assets in those scenarios or how to get insurance to protect you in these kinds of things. This is individually based upon each person's situation, but this is a huge sabotage we've seen happen to many, many folks because they never even heard of it. And then they're in this situation and they're trying to make decisions, and they're trying to take care of the person they love, and this is happening, and so this is why it made it to our list of one of the things people really have to watch out for, and start having a strategy to protect you in that situation if it ever should occur to you or your spouse or even somebody else that you care about.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Good. Well, that makes me think about, Daniel, the aspect of what people need to retire on, and what that's based upon two things. There's what you need to retire on, which is what you need now to be able to sit on the couch and watch TV. But then there's also what you want to be able to have for retirement, which is doing all the different things with your loved ones and your family and that kind of thing, but also what you want for retirement in regard to being able to stay at home as long as possible instead of having to go into a facility, right? So all those things create and need income. So, I'd like to give out a paper to you and our listening audience today that we have that goes along these needs that will help you put this together. How much do I need to retire? It's only a couple page paper that will give you some insights to help you know what you don't know, be able to educate you, because an educated retiree is a happy and stress-free retiree. We'll have to put this in your hand for free by calling 800-725-7616. How much do I need to retire? Call now, 800-725-7616 for your free copy. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. Today's topic is retirement sabotage. We've been talking about the aspect of how people sabotage their retirement is by not having the proper strategy. Another way that they sabotage is maybe having the wrong advisor, or a bad advisor, or the wrong investments. And then also talking about healthcare needs and costs, whether it's health insurance, long-term care, or paying too much for Medicare premiums because of the IRMA factor that comes into play. And all these things are things that need to be taken in consideration. Daniel, do you have anything more to add on the healthcare nature before
No. I think we should move on to withdrawals, because this is, I think, one of the bigger things people don't understand, right? The difference between, right? People don't understand this. I think we need to spend some time on it. The difference between spending down your assets or selling assets for withdrawals, and collecting a paycheck off your assets.
Yeah.
Right? Turning your asset into a renewable resource where it's generating an income for, it's paying you. You're not spending your money. You're spending the money your money is paying you. And people get this mixed up, or they say, I know, I do that. But then you look at their portfolios and they don't have anything paying them income. So they're not, even though they don't think they are. So a way that I like to talk about is, if you have $1 million in the bank, most people think, okay, divide that by the amount of years that I will live
in retirement,
and that is how much I can spend without running out of money. And I understand why people think that way.
Yeah.
But if you're invested properly, if you get the strategy right and you get the investment decisions right, you don't have to think that way, because you can start thinking about, if I have $1 million and I'm generating, I turn that into a renewable resource, I'm generating 6, or with rates where they are now, you might even be able to get 6.5%, 7% of income off of this.
Sweet. Nice.
Which means you can be pumping out, $60,000, $70,000 a year, which means you can spend that without tapping into your principal. And if you want to be conservative and you say, well, I only want to spend 50, I'm generating this, 6.5, I only spend 50. That means you can take the other 15 and reinvest it to keep growing your portfolio while you're spending the 50,000 off of it.
That's sweet. So then, the 50,000, because you're growing money the old fashioned way and you're compounding it rather than growing it. And so the 50,000 can turn into 60, 70, 80,000, 100,000 in the years ahead, even with you're getting 50,000 a year. So it's a beautiful thing. I love how that works.
And we did a show, I think it was last week, where you talked about somebody who had increased their portfolio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Increased their portfolio by 50%, or the retirement income by 50%.
Right.
And that's why we encourage people to make these decisions. Like the example we're using right now is if you just did it. Well, what if you did it 7 years ago,
Yeah.
right? If you did it 7 years ago, or if you're 7 years away from retirement, you don't have to collect that money. That 50,000 won't be 50,000 then. It will be this huge number because it will keep compounding. It will keep compounding. And the coolest thing about it is it doesn't matter what markets do.
Right.
It's going to keep compounding. If they have rough years, it actually might do better than if we have good years.
Yeah.
And it will just keep compounding. And so that's this sabotage, this retirement sabotage is understanding spending your principal or collecting income, right? How are you taking your withdrawals? And don't just say, I know, because every person says that, and most people don't have it set up this way.
That's right.
Are you, when you take a withdrawal, are you spending your assets or are you just spending income? Are you spending dividends and interest that's just coming into your account?
Exactly. Living off the interest rather than the principal. Your parents probably mentioned that to you and talked to you about that. And that's why we'd like to give you this book called Common Sense Income Strategies. Helps you understand part of the idea and how this works, what Daniel's saying. How can I get that 6 or whatever percent off of my investments? Well, this book will help you and educate you to the concept and how that works, so that you can know what you don't know and be an educated and stress-free retiree. We'd love to put this in your hand for free. 800-725-7616. Common Sense Income Strategies. 800-725-7616. For the next 5 callers, call now. We'll be right back after this.
You're locked on to Financial Strategy with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago, Sally came in to be able to retire. She said, Andrew, I want to retire and I need money now. I said, Sally, can't you wait? Give me a couple years so that I can, compound this income for you to be able to work. But no, Andrew, I'm retiring now. I need the money now. So we invested the money when we got her $100,000 a year to be able to live off her $2 million and of income. Well, the beautiful thing is that today she's still taking $100,000 of income, but she has $150,000 of income available to her. That right now she's compounding and reinvesting that extra 50 so that as she gets older, as prices go up, she's going to have more money then to be able to give her what she needs, more than enough money to live the rest of her life comfortably. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about retirement sabotage. And we're going through a few different things that retirees or people close to retirement need to watch out for. And your story, I think, brings us to the next one, which is lifestyle inflation, right?
Right.
Who cares about what Jay Powell or CPI is, or whatever anybody says inflation is? It doesn't matter, right? Lifestyle inflation matters, how you're being affected by inflation. And that depends on what you buy, what you do, right? If you travel a lot, plane tickets matter, right? If you are buying a lot of groceries or eating out at a lot of restaurants, that matters to you. If you're going to school, you're a student, or you're going to be a student and you have to pay for education, that matters to you. So this big basket, if you're trying to buy a house, right? This big basket that they use doesn't really matter for most people. Your lifestyle is what matters, right? And that's what we are always talking about on this show for retirees, is what lifestyle do you want to have? And then how can you support that lifestyle?
Exactly. That's great. You listen to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy. And Daniel, this is great. Staying ahead of inflation. Like in my example, we're able to help people to be able to do that by compounding their money the old-fashioned way. And this is one of the things that people don't think about. They think about, I can step up inflation by having my money in the stock market because that's the best place for it to be. But if the stock market goes down, how is that staying up with inflation? Right?
Then you got deflation
Exactly.
of your lifestyle. Who wants deflation of their lifestyle?
Right, exactly. I mean, the most people that I see come in here as clients and whatnot, they want to increase what they take out over time in one way or another, whether because they want to or because they have to. But the point is being able to have what they need to be able to last the rest of your life. And how do we do this? How do we help people to be able to not sabotage their retirements? That's a good question. I'm going to throw that out to you, Dan. You'd start.
Well, I think the absolute biggest one. Oh man, that's hard. Maybe they're tied. Awareness. You have to have awareness first, okay? Because when people get sneak attacked, right, and something that they weren't expecting pops up, they typically don't make good decisions.
Right.
When we're surprised, and you can look at this if you study plane crashes, for example. Almost every plane crash, the pilot saw something and it surprised them, and they didn't make simple choices, simple decisions that they knew they had a manual, they knew how to do it. They just got so focused because they got surprise attacked. They run out of fuel, or this happens or that happens, because they weren't paying attention. They weren't aware this could happen. And then the decision-making process just goes bonkers, right? So awareness, but I say the close second is the strategy, because the strategy puts you in a place where you can make those good decisions and where you can be set up for success, right? And we went through a couple examples of that, where one lady, she decided to switch from I hope that these stocks keep going up the way they have been so I can have my lifestyle, to let my assets pay me and I will live off of the dividends. And then another one who they never want this thing to happen to them with healthcare expenses, or having to go to a home or having home healthcare, but they're getting a strategy in place. So if that horrible thing did happen, it wouldn't be a surprise and they would be able to manage through it. The strategy will help them get through it.
Yes, indeed. And Daniel, you just added a sixth thing to how people sabotage their retirement, which is awareness. And that's what we're talking about. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. So we want to make you aware of what you don't know and educate you, because an educated retiree is a happy and stress-free retiree. And today we have a paper we'd like to give you to be able to help you be more educated as you look and plan for retirement, whether you're in it or approaching. And it's called How Much Do I Need to Retire? And we'd love to put this in your hand. It's only a 2-page paper. Call us at 800-725-7616 and ask for the paper. How much do I need to retire? And we'd love to get that out to you. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is retirement sabotage. Okay, Daniel. So as we wind up here, we talked about the first way that people sabotage their retirements is by not having the proper strategy in place to be able to work in the good times and the bad times. The second way that people sabotage their retirements is by making poor investment decisions. Maybe it's the wrong advisor, whether it's themselves or somebody else that they've actually hired, or it's the wrong investments that they make because they're dealing with the emotions of the situation rather than having a strategy that takes them through, smooths out those things. The third thing is how people don't take into consideration cost for health care, whether it's health insurance or it's long-term care or it's the IRMA factor that punches up Medicare costs. The fourth way people sabotage their retirements is withdrawing money, cannibalizing their assets, as opposed to living off of the interest. And the fifth way we just talked about was lifestyle inflation, and not what CPI is or any of that stuff. It's what it is at the pumps, right? How much inflation is at the gas pumps, how much it is for buying a car, how much it is at the grocery store. Lifestyle inflation. Make sure that you're able to stay ahead of that. And of course, in that would be ahead of taxation as well. So as we wrap up, as we finish out today's episode, what comes to your mind?
Well, I think that the interesting thing about all of these are they all change, right? And so
Right.
what worked earlier is different now, but right? We look at for investment decisions, right? The investments, there's that quote, there's not good or bad bonds, right? It's what you pay for it. So you could buy the best asset on earth, which we saw happen to some of these banks. They bought the best assets on earth, government-backed securities, and they went down in value because they paid too much for them, and the banks ended up failing. And then we see guys like Howard Mark, who built an entire business of buying junk, right? Junk rated stuff, but buying the bonds of companies where he knows he could liquidate the whole company. He pays $60 million for it, and he knows he could liquidate it for $160 million. It's considered junk, but he knows he's going to make that much money, so he buys it. And those things change, right? So it depends what stage of life you are. And just like those, it depends what stage those companies are or how they affect you, right? So something that used to be good doesn't mean it's still good. Something that's considered good doesn't mean it is good.
Right.
And so something that has worked in the past, if you're in a different phase of life, it may not still be good for you. That doesn't mean that doesn't work anymore. That doesn't mean it's bad, but it might not be best for you, right? Or like the lifestyle inflation, which is something I hope retirees think about more and more, because this is such a big thing. You might have been spending money on houses and you cared what houses cost. You might have been spending money on education and you cared what that was. Now you might be buying more cars, just fun cars. Now you might be traveling more. Now you might be, staying at hotels or Airbnbs, right? Now you might be paying for large trips, and you care about these kinds of things. So it really matters what you are spending, what's important to you. And that's where we wrap right back into the strategies, because when you have the proper strategy and you visualize what you want that retirement to look for, you can start building based upon that.
Excellent. And what you invest in is key, and how you invest. The strategy, like Daniel's talking, the strategy that you have for investing is very key to know whether or not you're going to have enough money, more than enough money to live the rest of your life in retirement or not. And having somebody that understands how to make money when the market goes up, but not lose anything when the market goes down. Having investments that pay you dividends and interest, no matter what the stock market is doing. Getting 5 to 6% on average every year over a long period of time at maybe a quarter of the risk of the stock market. These are things that will keep you from sabotaging your retirement. And going along with that, we'd like to give you, before we close out financial strategies today for this week, love to give you this book, Common Sense Income Strategies by Michael Eastham. This will be able to help you understand some of these things better, more in depth of what we're saying. And we'd love to have the conversation with you if you're so inclined. But you can have this book for free with no obligation, calling 800-725-7616. Common Sense Income Strategies. Ask for it by name, 800-725-7616. You've been listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic has been retirement sabotage, because people don't know what people don't know. Right? And a educated retiree is a happy and stress-free retiree.